His Excellencies, Her Excellencies, honorable guest speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we would like to invite our next guest speaker, Dr. Raquel Granados-Aguilar, the Post-doctorate Project LISTO, at College Station, Texas, A&M University, Texas, USA. And his topic is about mentoring families to engage in family involvement in science, FIS. So our presentation will last 60 minutes. So we'd like to invite our guest speaker, Dr. Raquel, please. Welcome.
Hello, and thank you for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here, very honored to be part of this international opportunity. My presentation is actually, we will start with a pre-recorded presentation. So at any time, if you please go ahead and share it, and then we can talk about it more.
Yes. Thank you so much, Doctor. So we are going to play the video for you. So please give us a second.
Thank you very much for joining this session. We are going to talk about mentoring families to engage in family involvement in science, or we call FIS. I'm here today representing Dr. Raquel Granados-Aguilar. My name is Dr. Cindy Guerrero, and we are from Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. We're also representing our principal investigators, Dr. Rafael Lara-Lacio, Dr. Beverly Irby, and Dr. Fui Tong. We work for the Center for Research and Development in Dual Language and Literacy Acquisition, and also represent the Education Leadership Research Center. Let's think for a moment about the benefits of engaging families. We do know that research supports in telling us that families have a moderating effect on child attendance, health, and social skill development. Also, impacts their math and reading achievement in the middle grades, and ultimately impacts their high school completion. We also know the benefits of engaging and mentoring families really help to mitigate academic challenges. When working with students who are low socioeconomic status, or we call economically challenged, students of different ethnicities or race, parents' educational level, all of these variables can be overcome by parents' active engagement in their child's learning. We also know that interactions at home are an important leverage point in a child's science learning. Most of the research studies really show impact of parent involvement in reading and math, but we also are starting to learn more about parent involvement impact in the area of science, as well as student confidence and achievement increase as the level of family engagement increases. For all of these reasons, we're happy to share with you the way that we support and mentor families to engage their students in science. This is one of the informal science components of Project LISTO. LISTO stands for Literacy-Infused Science Using Technology Innovation Opportunities. This is a 5-year, $12 million federally funded program investigating effective science instruction in Texas. And we targeted to work with school districts that are that have at least 50.1% economically challenged students, and 66% of our campuses are rural. The overall mission of LISTO is to improve science, The overall LISTO mission is to improve student science and reading, writing, literacy achievement by working with the teachers, administrators, and families. Here you can see a map of Texas, and it helps to show you where some of our treatment school district partners are located. So our treatment groups in LISTO, the teachers received ongoing professional PD, they received lesson plans and materials, and the families received these mentoring opportunities that we'll share with you today. We had 12 districts, 15 campuses, 35 fifth grade science teachers, and 1,656 students and their families. Family involvement in science, or FIS, in this component, we provided standards aligned So activities that align directly to what the state of Texas wanted fifth grade students to learn in science. So we took those science topics and developed a booklet that was sent home with students in both English and Spanish to engage the family members with the fifth grade students in science dialogue and activities. What's really, really exciting is this is groundbreaking research. This is the first time with the use of technology, we're able to go into the home with vision goggles, vision glasses, and observe the family and student interactions as they're working on science activities. Family involvement in science, or FIS, helps to mentor families to support their child's science learning through scaffolded, literacy-infused science activities. When we say literacy-infused, we mean strategic opportunities for families and students to listen, speak, read, and write while learning about science. FIS also provided resources to help the families engage in science. FIS is designed to provide science mentoring supports, again, that are aligned, inquiry-based, meaning exploration and hands-on activities related to core science practices. Typically, activities could take between 15 or 20 minutes. There's flexible participation on which family members could participate with the students. Low or no cost materials that are readily available in the home. And if not, supplemental materials would be sent home with the students. Extension opportunities. And again, the embedded literacy connections. So let's take a look at an example of what a FIS booklet looks like and some of the components. Again, we did send these booklets home in both English and Spanish. So we made it to look like a science journal or a composition notebook. And you can see here the front and back cover. We did include additional or recommended readings, both fiction and nonfiction, and some extension activities. Within the booklet, you'll see at the top, we have a Dear Family section that introduces a science concept, vocabulary, in which the science academic vocabulary is broken down into syllables, and also a student-friendly definition. Over to the right, you'll see an example of a family science activity. This had to do with properties of matter, and we were encouraging the family to make some kind of measuring tool. And again, with the use of common household materials. Within each FIS booklet, there were also reading passages provided that related to that science content and gave the families and the students opportunities to interact with the text. So here we have in English and Spanish. This one again is about properties of matter. You can see some of the scaffolds involved, such as bold vocabulary words, opportunities for the family and the student to summarize by creating a title for the reading passage, opportunities to show comprehension by illustrating or drawing a physical property. And at the bottom of the passage, there was an open-ended question that applied to the family. How do you use physical property to make choices as a family? So one example of that may be, we look at the color of our bread before we eat it. If it has something growing on it that has green, maybe that's not a good opportunity to eat that bread. Or also talking about physical properties such as 5 senses. So the overall goal was to help the students and family apply the concept to their everyday life. We also have a variety of parent resources. There were links to videos to help walk the parents through an orientation of FIS and how to use the materials. Within each FIS kit sent home, we also had this flip guide, this instructional guide, again in English and Spanish, that provided different topics to support the families if they were interacting with their kids. And here's an example of a page out of that flip book of ideas and tips, some conversation starters to help the families mentor their students in science activities. Here you see an image of what went home in a FIS kit. We had a string type of backpack to keep the materials together, 2 pairs of the vision glasses that were used to record the interactions, the FIS booklet, and the instructional guide. And some of the topics that we included in FIS were matter, energy, light, changes in Earth's surface, weather, space, ecosystems, traits, and behaviors. So we did send surveys home with the families, and we'd like to share with you some of those findings. Some of the questions really had to do with, are the materials approachable? And so we say, you know, was this fun? And as you can see, overwhelmingly, most of the students strongly agreed that the FIS activities were fun. The families agreed the instructions were easy to follow. It didn't take too much time. It was easy to use the vocabulary during the activities. The materials were easy to find. But what we'd like to focus on today, with talking about the importance of family engagement and how FIS is a tool to help mentor families, are these two highlighted responses. This has encouraged me to have more science conversations at home. And we see here that 87% agree or strongly agree that these activities have increased the science conversations that are happening in the home, which we're very, very excited about. The last part of the survey, you'll see towards the bottom, my learners' attitude towards science improved with the use of science booklets. And based on the responses we received from the families, that's 100% of learners' attitude improving, which is just amazing because that is the purpose. We want to support families and help them have the tools to support their students in science activities. Some additional family perspectives. You'll see some of these are in Spanish. We do have Spanish families represented in our study. We do like working through the projects because all the family participates. It encouraged my daughter to appreciate science and have fun learning. It was very easy to use and easy to understand. It was interactive and engaging, and many more people will be willing to participate. It was more than just doing a worksheet. So sometimes I think parents may see homework coming home, type of a worksheet, type of activity, and it's just not as engaging as them being supplied with materials to mentor and guide their students through hands-on activities. A very fun experience. So again, we mentioned that this is groundbreaking research. It's the first time with the use of technology, we're able to go into the homes and observe these families interacting. And again, we use these Go Vision glasses, as you can see, has a little camera in the middle. So we're going to watch a short sample of a video that was recorded in a home. And I want to set up the context. They are working on the topic of properties of matter. And the activity they're working on is to measure mass of objects at home. And what you'll see here is that this father actually expanded or took this learning further, and he was teaching his daughter how to calculate density. That was not an activity that we listed, but you can see by providing the opportunity for them to explore measuring mass, that he was able to use that and expand even further.
Okay. 79 over 310
Yep. So what is a 79?
grams.
The mass of what? Of the magnet, right?
Yes.
And 310 is what?
The hydrogen.
Water. Yes. All right. So what do we do?
We're going to 79
79
divided by
310
310
equals 0.25. So density equals big D.
We love to see that coming in, where we see a family member, in this case, the father, working with his daughter, using this opportunity to not only learn about science, but to make connections and help her be more interested in science. When we look at who is participating in FIS, here we have the circle graph that shows the student participants by gender, and it's pretty much equal across male and female students. Again, these are 5th grade students. When we look at family member participants, these are ones that were involved in recordings. It's very, very interesting. You can see that we have adult females, about 40% or 78 participants. That was the majority. Adult males, about 20%. Really interesting too, is we can see this green, 24%, that's where the student just did it by themselves. So maybe they didn't have a family member available, but that did not stop them. They pushed forward and recorded themselves doing the activity. 1%, an older adult. This was beautiful to see grandparents engaging with their 5th grade grandchildren. 2%, the same age child. So these are peers working through the activities together. And 11%, an older child, which was usually an older cousin or an older sibling that was working through the activities. So it's very, very interesting to see the different family members that were participating. We are taking a closer look at all of the videos we collected. We use this, what we call FIS Op, the Family Involvement in Science Observation Protocol. This is an observation protocol adapted from Dr. Lara Lecio's transitional bilingual observation protocol. What we do is we look at each 20-second segment and we code across to look at the physical group. Who's involved? Are there any specific learning strategies? Who's talking? Who's listening? Who's performing? Who's evaluating? Are the family members and students listening, speaking, reading, or writing? What is the language being used by the family members? What are they talking about? What is the language content? Are they just talking about social types of activities, like how was your day at school today? Was it more routines, like let's clean off the table to get ready for the science activity? Or was it actually more dense in talking about the science topics and science vocabulary? Where were the participating members looking or focusing? Were they looking at the booklet? Were they looking at the other participants? Were they looking around, maybe at little brother or sister in the other room? And also looking at science learning behaviors. What science activity, academic vocabulary was used? And were there any alternative conceptions or misconceptions where maybe the students or the family members didn't quite clearly understand science concepts? So as we've shared with you today, there are many benefits to mentoring families to engage with their children at home. And we're able to do that through family involvement in science. And we know again that this helps to foster a science identity, improves their science reasoning, cultivates their scientific practices, increases their interest in science, and strengthens the conceptual understandings of science concepts. Thank you so much for attending this presentation. If you'd like more information, you can check out our website at https://credella.tamu.edu/LISTO. You can also reach out to Dr. Raquel Granados-Aguilar at raquelg@tamu.edu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Raquel, for a very interesting video. So far, we have got some questions, so I think it's better for me to read the question for you, and then you can respond to the question. Okay, so the first question is from, I think, Mr. Sa Sopal from Cambodia, and his question is, how do parents build a good relationship with their children at early age? So please welcome, Doctor. I'm sorry, Doctor, can you unmute yourself? I'm sorry. Oh, please wait, Doctor. We will.
Okay, thank you. Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Sorry again.
No problem. Thank you very much. And thank you for your question. One of the ways that we can guide parents to build a good relationship with their children at an early age is to encourage parents to get more involved with the kids' learning, right? And so one of the ways we can do this is, as you could see with the family involvement in science component of Project LISTO, overall, we received very positive feedback or very positive opinions from the participants. We had a separate question to ask students and the parents what their opinion was about working together through these science activities, how that changed. As you could see, we shared some of the results. And so we see an overall impact, positive impact, and building a relationship between parents and children as they work together in informal science learning in this case.
Yes, thank you so much, Doctor, for a very wonderful answer. So let me continue to the next question. So the next question is from Duen Chan Duen, I think, yeah, from Cambodia. So the question is how to take science successfully. Yeah, so please, Doctor.
That is a great question as well. In Project LISTO, there were two main things that the project did. So part of the project was, its goal was to support teachers and formal science teaching in the classroom by providing a literacy-infused science curriculum. What that means, as Dr. Guerrero said in the video, is that we focus that curriculum in teaching students to speak, to write, to listen, and to read while learning science, because one of the advantages of using these type of strategies is that we have a lot of students that participated in Project LISTO that are English language learners. So they are learning English as they are learning their science content. So it is very advantageous, and it provides a successful delivery if we can use some of those strategies throughout the curriculum. If we can support teachers, for example, we have virtual professional development sessions with the teachers where we go over the content, the science content. We make sure that it's clear. We provide teachers with strategies on how to deliver. We also have a very interesting, and this will be also touched in the next session in more detail, but just to give you an overview because it helps answer this question. We also provide live mentoring and coaching for the LISTO teachers. So we'll be listening in sometimes to their science delivery, their teaching, and we can provide live feedback. So those are some of the supports that we have for the teachers. And then we also have the informal science learning component, which family involvement in science is one of those informal learning, science learning supports, which also helps. As you can see, we have different levels of supports for the parents to engage in science activities. And so this helps bring everything together, what the students are learning in the classroom, and then they go home and they get to do more activities, and they get reinforcement in the vocabulary, the science, like academic vocabulary. They work in a more familiar, comfortable setting with their family. And it always ends up being fun. And I think another big portion is how to teach science successfully is using the 5E model of instruction, or the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. So all of these strategies are already part of the LISTO curriculum. So I think that helps a lot in terms of delivering science content successfully.
Yes, thank you so much, Doctor, for a very great answer. I think I would like to read one more question for you. Yeah. So last but not least question is from Miss Vata from Cambodia. Her question is, does FIS activities help autism children? It can, how? So could you just share, please? Yeah.
Thank you. We have not worked with special needs students yet, when we have not implemented this type of informal science learning with students with autism. So I wouldn't be able to say if there is a benefit to using this type of family involvement activities for that particular portion of the population. But we can look into that. And if you don't mind sending me an email later, and we can look into that and see if there is anything in that supports that type of benefit.
We say thank you so much, Doctor. Because of the time limitation, we're really sorry that we could not answer all the questions of our participants who have dropped in the chat box. So we deeply apologize for that. But we still have the email of Dr. Raquel. So if you need more further information, or you want to get more, yes, from a doctor, you can email to doctor, and then you can get more. So doctor, before coming to an end of your presentation, would you like to say something to our participant? So please.
I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for this great opportunity. And please do feel free to email me with your questions. I apologize, I didn't have time to answer all of the questions, but I will do my best to answer if you email me, please. Thank you.
Yes, thanks again, Dr. Raquel, for a very valuable time sharing a very interesting topic. It's really useful for us. So thanks you once again. So His Excellencies, Her Excellencies, honorable guest speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we would like to invite our next guest speaker, Dr. Cindy Carrero, a research scientist, Project LISTO and Victory, Texas A&M University, College Station, United States of America. So this topic is about scientists as role models and mentors. So our guest speaker will have 30 minutes for the presentation, including the question and answer. Now I would like to give this floor to Dr. Cindy Carrero. So please welcome, Doctor.
Dr. Cindy Guerrero, I'm here representing her, so we will.
Yes,
watch.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we are going to play the video again, so please enjoy. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for joining this session. Today we're going to talk about scientists as role models and mentors, or what we call SRM squared. I'm here representing Texas A&M University from College Station, Texas. My name is Dr. Cindy Guerrero, and my co-presenter is Dr. Raquel Granados-Aguilar. We are also here on behalf of our principal investigators. We have Dr. Rafael Lara Lacio, Dr. Beverly Irby, and Dr. Fui Tong. We all work within the College of Education and Human Development, and we're representing the two centers you see here. Credella, or the Center for Research and Development in Dual Language and Literacy Acquisition, and also the ELRC, Education Leadership Research Center. Today we're going to talk about SRM squared, scientists as role models and mentors. This is the mentoring program that we have to bridge or connect university scientists and elementary and intermediate science students. This is a component that has been included in a series of large-scale, federally funded research grants here in the United States. In these grants, we work with teachers to implement literacy-infused science. So we provide ongoing professional development, observations, feedback, lessons, activities, research-based strategies, the science materials that are needed in the classroom, and also technology. Our goal is to help teachers implement literacy-infused science with their students. Opportunities to include more listening, speaking, reading, and writing in the content area of science. This presentation today will share examples of SRM squared interactions between science mentors and students across 3 projects. The first project is called MISSLE. That's short for Middle School Science for English Language Learners. This project was implemented back in 2008. That's when it started. We started with a group of 5th grade students and then followed them for 2 years as they moved up to 6th grade. This was in one suburban school district in the Houston area. And to better understand the demographics of that district, you can see it was 85% economically challenged, with around 35% English learners. Because we were in one school district and we had a strong partnership with that district, we were able to have a research site there right in the area of the school district, close to the schools in which we were implementing. This helped to allow for us to provide in-person components, such as in-person professional development. We could go over to the classrooms and do in-person observations. And the goal of Project MISSLE was to improve the science achievement and the academic English language proficiency of middle school Spanish-speaking English language learners. So one component of Project MISSLE was SRM squared. And again, this was the first time it was implemented. As you can see here, we have a group of our middle school students, and they are actually at a lab at a university. We call this Saturdays at SAM. SAM is short for Sam Houston State University. Back at this time, one of our principal investigators, Dr. Irby, was faculty there at that university. So we were able to make connections and collaborate there with the science team at Sam Houston State. So again, this was when SRM squared was first implemented. And because we were in one school district, we were able to work in person directly with the teachers and students. And we were so excited to be able to take those students about 60 miles north outside of Houston to the university. We would get their parent permission slips. We would purchase the rental for the buses and pay the bus drivers. We would get up early on Saturday morning, load the buses, and drive up to the university. And the students were so very excited. Some of them had never been out of their local communities. You can see here they have their orange shirts. We wanted to make sure that we were all able to stay together in a group and they felt united. So these were our Saturday at SAM t-shirts for Project MISSLE. So we drove up to the university and had these schedule of a variety of opportunities for the students to go into the labs at the university, have access to their state-of-the-art equipment. You can see this very expensive and specialized microscope here, to utilize equipment that students may not have had access to before, to interact and do interesting activities with the scientist, and really see the opportunity of visiting a university and hopefully motivate them to want to continue to learn more about science and possibly become a scientist themselves. The next project is called Project LISTO. LISTO stands for Literacy Infused Science Using Technology Opportunities. Project LISTO is actually a validation of Project MISSLE. So in LISTO, which started back in 2017, and we're now in our last year of the project where we're studying sustainability and also working on disseminating or sharing out our findings. This project started with 5th grade students. And we mentioned before, MISSLE was in one district. LISTO scaled out, and we're able to include over 35 school districts in Texas, both rural and urban. Our goal was to include at least 66% rural campuses in Project LISTO. Now, Texas is a big state, and because of all our school districts were all around the state, we needed to transition from in-person supports to virtual or online supports. So in LISTO, we provided online or virtual professional development, online observations, online coaching. So when you look at SRM squared component, one of the informal science components of Project LISTO, within this project, we had our university science mentors actually record videos that were embedded into the curriculum presentations. So as the teachers were implementing the LISTO lessons, we would have the video clips of the scientists pop in at strategic points within the lesson to help try to bring it to life and for the students to connect with people that represent them, their culture, perhaps, their gender, to see, wow, you know, these are students studying to be scientists. This is really interesting. So within these video clips, the mentors would introduce themselves, their science field, their interest, their experiences that all related to the topic that our 5th grade students were learning about. Afterwards, the students would generate questions for the science mentors, and the teacher would email those questions to the mentors, and then the mentors would respond. Also, we wanted to include connections to science-related careers. So we would introduce, for example, what a related career would be. What is the education related to that? What are some of the tasks that those scientists do? What skills are needed? What's an average salary? But not only introducing that highest level of career, but also a technician level as well. So we would introduce, for example, here, who is an ecology technician? What is the education needed for that? Where might they work? And what is that salary? To see the broad range of science-related careers. Here we have an example of one of our science mentors, and we're so excited. She actually was in San Francisco and recorded this beautiful video to help bring it to life. The students were learning about changes in Earth's surface and about natural hazards and earthquakes. So she created this beautiful video to introduce herself, to introduce in the field, right? She's actually near the San Andreas Fault in California. So let's take a look at this science mentor.
Hi, I'm Allie Snell. I'm a graduate student at Texas A&M in College Station, Texas. I'm currently getting my PhD in geology, and I research how faults create earthquakes in different types of environmental conditions. I first became interested in science when I was in middle school. I was born and raised here in San Francisco, California, and I grew up hiking and exploring the outdoors with my family, and I have a love of nature because of that. I love geology because it combines physics and chemistry into a very important and valuable science that impacts our lives every day. This is especially true for areas of the country that deal with different types of natural disasters. The East and Gulf Coasts deal with hurricanes and major flood events, while other parts of the country deal with volcanoes, tornadoes, landslides, and more. But here in California, forest fires, landslides, and most especially earthquakes are the most significant natural disasters. So we've moved to the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge here, and as you can see, it is a beautiful sunny but also foggy day. So if you hear more of that, that's the foghorn. What we're going to talk about is plate tectonics. And plate tectonics is basically the Earth is divided into a bunch of giant puzzle pieces that have been moving across the Earth's surface very slowly for millions of years. And here in northern California, we have the North American plate coming together with the Pacific plate to form what is known as the San Andreas Fault. The Andreas Fault is huge. It's over 800 miles long, which is longer than the entire state of Texas. And along it, we have the Pacific plate moving northwest to the North American plate, and that movement is causing earthquakes to generate along the San Andreas Fault. How are earthquakes generated, you ask? Well, it's pretty simple, and we'll just go with the basic stick analogy. So the earth, as it's moving against each other, it's pushing and it's pulling, and it's causing deformation. It's causing the stick or the earth to bend. And it yields just enough until it can no longer yield, and that is caused like a faulting. And during that faulting event, seismic waves are released, and those seismic waves are essentially what generate an earthquake. So we popped back across the bridge, and now we're in San Francisco again. One of the things that I was just talking about was seismic waves that are released when an earthquake occurs. And these seismic waves are a high amount of energy that move through the earth. And when they move through the earth, they can cause a lot of damage to buildings and homes and other structures like bridges. San Francisco has suffered from large magnitude earthquakes before, but despite this, people keep moving here because of the nature and the views, and because there is a lot of jobs through places like Silicon Valley. So it's important that we study earthquakes so that we can create safer communities and smarter buildings, and eventually be able to predict earthquakes. And that's what I'm hoping to do at Texas A&M. That's all the time we have for today, but if you have any questions about geology or earthquakes or anything science related, you can email me. And thanks so much. Have a great day.
I just love that video, how she was there in person and making the connections, and at the end really talking about why it's so important to study things such as faults and earthquakes and natural hazards, and how that implies to the community. How can we, provide warnings that these earthquakes are coming, and how could we develop buildings and cities that can maybe sustain earthquakes? So as we mentioned, and as you saw at the end of her video, she says, email me the questions at listoscientist@tamu.edu. And here's some of the a sample of some of the student questions that came in after interacting with this science mentor. What's the difference between a volcano and a mountain? How do they form differently? If you stick your arm in lava, does it burn instantly or does it take a while? Now keep in mind, these are 5th grade students. How do people walk near a volcano safely? Did you always want to be a geologist? What time do you have to wake up if you're a geologist? A few more questions. What's the difference between weathering and erosion? Will the earth ever erode until it's completely flat? Very interesting. How do landslides form? Can you tell days before an earthquake is going to happen? And what can be done to reduce the damage caused by natural hazard? So the scientists would receive these questions and then share their responses back with the teachers and the student. So within the SRM Square, the scientists and role models as mentors in Project LISTO, we had very positive perceptions shared by both the teachers and the students. However, this was asynchronous. As you saw, the videos were pre-recorded and they were injected into their curriculum presentation. So that asynchronous mode did limit kind of the live interactions and connections between the scientists and the students. We're excited to say that we have a new project called Project Victory. Victory stands for Virtually Infused Collaborations for Teaching and Learning Opportunities for Rural Youth. This project is just kicking off now in 2021 and currently runs through 2023. We start with a group of grade 3 students and their science teachers. Again, we're implementing literacy-infused science. We are working with low-income rural school districts only. If you'll remember, the first project, we were in 1 district. The second project, we were in 35 districts, both rural and urban. And now in Victory, we're in 43 school districts, all rural in Texas. Again, we are implementing that literacy-infused science. Another important examination in Project Victory is looking more closely at instructional mode. In-person instruction as compared to online instruction. And we certainly know we've been doing, we've had that uncontrolled experiment with the pandemic. So it's really important that we have rigorous research to learn more about the differences in how students learn under both of these instructional modes. So again, in Project Victory, we have the Sciences Mentors, Role Models and Mentors component, but we will be enhancing what we did in Project LISTO based on the feedback. In Project Victory, our goal is to have the synchronous, right, the same time, live virtual sessions between the scientist and those students. And we already have more than 50 university science students interested and ready to interact with our third grade students starting in the spring of 2022. So we're very excited to connect them. We will be using an online platform called GoToMeeting to make those online synchronous connections. We also have the goal to conduct semi-structured interviews with the teachers, the students, and the scientists to learn more how SRM squared impacts their learning. And we'll also be recording these interactions and able to go back and further analyze the interactions between the scientist and the students. So we're very excited to see how we have SRM squared implemented across 3 different projects in different contexts. In summary, SRM squared, or Scientists and Role Models and Mentors, connects university student majors as mentors to students. It is designed to motivate students in areas of STEM, particularly in science. And it is a model of university-school partnership with the goal of increasing engagement in science and motivation for students to study areas of science and to become scientists themselves. Thank you for attending this session. If you'd like more information, please feel free to email me, cguerrero@tamu.edu.
Yes, thank you so much, Doctor. So, Dr. Raquel, is it possible if you can respond some participant question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I will read that question for you. So the first question is from Mr. Sorsapol, Cambodia. This question is, why is mentoring important in STEM? Yes, I would like to invite Doctor to respond to this question, please.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for the question as well. Well, mentoring is very important in STEM because research shows that students lose interest in pursuing science and technology at a very early age. And so an important intervention is to have mentoring that helps connect students with someone in the field that they see themselves represented, right? As Dr. Guerrero mentioned in her presentation, seeing students, science students that look like them, maybe connecting with them, learning about how they got to that point where they always interested in science. How did they get interested in science? Sometimes some of the questions we received from the students were more specific about the types of classes that they have to take once they're in college, what type of science content they receive, and how to overcome challenges. And so it is very important to provide that mentoring component so that the students can see how other people that look like them have been able to pursue a science and technology career.
Yes, thank you, Doctor, for a very correct answer. So allow me to read the next question for you. So the next question is from Mr. Chan Viesna from Phnom Penh, Cambodia. And his question is, what are the challenges have you faced to implement the scientists as role models and mentors? So thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I think the main challenge that we faced, at least implementing SRM squared as part of Project LISTO, is the fact that we had to do it asynchronous, or where we had the scientists or the science mentors record their videos, and then that would be included as part of the lesson. And there was a little bit of a delay in getting the questions from the students to the mentors. And then the mentors, of course, are university students, and they have all their responsibilities. And So by the time they get the questions and then they have time to answer, because sometimes they would get 30 questions. Remember, this was a large scale project that worked with many students across the state of Texas. So sometimes each mentor would receive a large number of questions from each of the 35 teachers that we were working with. And so it would demand a certain time commitment. And some of the feedback we received from teachers and the students is that there was a little bit of a delay in that wait time between submitting the questions to the scientists and receiving the answers sometimes was a little detrimental because it didn't feel like there was a direct or live connection. And this is one challenge we're hoping to address with Project Victory, where we will have live interactions between the mentors and the students.
Yes, thank you so much. That's a wonderful answer, Doctor. So let me read another question. It's from Miss Kuntia, and she's from Kampong Chnang province, Cambodia. And his question is, from your own perspective, do you think is it possible to apply LISTO and Victory project in Cambodia? So
thank you for the question. I think it is possible to apply the type of support and the structure that these projects are that are embedded in these projects in other countries. And it is my understanding that our principal investigators have successfully implemented similar projects in different countries. And so it hasn't only, these successful strategies have not only been tested in Texas, which is where we're based. You have seen most of our results and our implementation and results are from. So I do think, given the proper financial support, the proper funding sources, that similar schemes could be applied in different countries, absolutely, and in particular in Cambodia.
thank you so much, Doctor, for a very wonderful answer. So far, I think we finished the question. So, Doctor, I think, would you like to say something before we end this presentation?
Is there, is this, are we at the time limit, or is there any extra time?
I think we still have more time. If you have something to share, please, okay?
Well, I would just like to share, well, again, thank you for attending this presentation. I hope that you can see how beneficial it is for students, how we have data already that shows how beneficial it is for students to have an informal science component as part of their science learning, and not just limited to the formal science teaching in the classroom, but to take that a step further, as we saw previously with the family involvement in science, and now with bringing the university science mentors and role models and connecting them to the students is highly beneficial. I would just like to close with that. And of course, if there are any additional questions, feel free to reach me and Dr. Guerrero. I will add Dr. Guerrero's email address to the chat in case anyone wants to contact her about this.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. I think Dr. Catherine, she would like to ask, is there a science ebook for home use which is available? Doctor, do you think that you have some science ebook?
Oh, okay. The booklets from the family involvement in science, if they're available, yes, it is my understanding that there will be Thank you. I can see the chat now. Thank you very much. There is we are developing a set of booklets that are designed with these strategies in them to be able to disseminate this type of resource to other universities as well and to other interested parties. So please feel free to reach out and we will follow up on that and how to get access to this type of resource.
I see. Thank you so much, Dr. Raquel, for a very great two video and also your question and answer. It's very meaningful for us and it's very useful. So we really appreciate your great work. So thank you so much.